He got it for his Syracuse has no chance of winning this game.
I got somebody screenshotted that and texted it to me.
Yeah, people did not get him either because he's brilliant like I am.
Mike, how are you today?
I'm doing well. And it's funny because I got the mix of the people who get that I do that, and for whatever reason, it seems to turn around and work, and the team that I say that about ends up winning. And so I got a bunch of Syracuse fans that understand this responding, "Thank you, this is the only chance we have." And then I got the people that don't follow me that would come in after the game and say, "Update, they'll let anyone write these days? What a clown." And it was crazy.
All right, so I mean, you've been covering this team for a while, and I was trying to think back to a game where, like, there's been comebacks and fantastic finishes and whatnot. I'm having a hard time remembering a game where it felt like Syracuse was dead and buried, and they came back and won. Did that game Saturday remind you of anything you had covered in the past?
Not that they felt that dead, because at least like some of these crazy comebacks, like if you look at last year, the Miami game, they had the Kyle McCord and the Trevor Pena and all those players and whatever. They had won, 8 games to that point. They had shown to be a really good team. You knew that they could throw the ball, and Miami's defense wasn't very good, and it was early when it was 21-0 as well. And even the Virginia Tech game last year, it felt for a while like Syracuse just couldn't get out of its own way offensively. But again, you knew you had Kyle McCord. You knew you had a passing offense that could move the ball and score against anybody. So it still felt like there was at least a little bit of hope. This didn't feel that way at all. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. They struggled to stop UConn, although much better in the second half. But offensively, it was so bad and so, I don't know if inept is the right word, but it just didn't look anything like even what the Syracuse offense looked like last week. And so it just felt like it was not their day. Something was off. Something wasn't right. And UConn came in with all the confidence in the world that they were a team that could beat Syracuse and felt like they were the better team and played that way. And so, it just never felt like that was a game that Syracuse was ever in control of and could win until all of a sudden they went crazy in the last, 5-6 minutes.
Tim Leonard handed this to us before the show started that according to ESPN's probability before the fourth down touchdown to Justice Ross Simmons, Syracuse had a 1.8% chance of winning that game. So that gives you an idea. Somebody in the chat brought up the 2018 North Carolina game where DeVito went in relief of Eric Dungy. But again, even with that team, to your point, Mike, about last year, like that team was good, and I think by then we knew they were good, and that they were not having a good day, but that was a relatively high scoring game, and you felt like they were a play or two away from turning that thing around. Saturday, it felt like the game was over, Paulie.
Somebody compared that game to yesterday with the fact that they didn't go to the backup quarterback and go to Ricky Collins. And I had to explain that Dungy was established.
Right.
He was a veteran.
Big difference.
It does. He was a veteran. He probably got said, "You're done for the day. We're going to try the new kid. You're back next week." And you can do that in that situation. It's too early to be switching quarterbacks. What was your take on that, Mike?
I certainly understand looking for any idea that could provide the offense a spark given how bad it looked until those last 6 minutes. I certainly understand it. And if Fran had decided to throw Ricky Collins out there, I wouldn't have killed him for it because I would have understood that too. But I also understand, to your point, Paulie, it's a player who, even though he's a junior and he's been in college for multiple years, it's only his second start. When he's been in the past, it really was just in relief or, in a bowl game where there's a bunch of players that, weren't typically there during the regular season. Completely different than starting your first home game and, the crowd and all of that. Right after, the loss in week one, you're trying to bounce back and maybe press it a little bit. All of those things, all learning moments. So you certainly understand that if you make that move, you probably lose him completely. And it's much more difficult to stick with him and see how it plays out. And luckily for Syracuse, it played out in a positive way. But if they had made the change, that feels like it's a change you got to make almost permanently, to your point. It's not something that you can just make and then go back to Steve the next week. because you're essentially telling him that you don't really have any faith in him. And so sticking with him, letting it play out, having him turn it around those final 5-6 minutes where he was really good during that stretch, I think it could end up paying dividends in the long run in terms of Steve Angeli's development.
I've said that many times, Mike. We're 100% on the same page. If you take somebody like that out of the starting lineup or out of their starting position or, bench them, you have to get to the point where you're ready to move on from them.
And if Ricky Collins isn't good, you've got two guys that are just
second-guessing themselves.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. What did you think about the booing, as long as we're talking about it?
I never have a problem with booing when it's what it was. And now, of course, I'm an Eagles fan, so I'm kind of used to booing. But, I understood it. And I was sitting in the stands with my son, and he kind of understood it too. And he's only, 10 years old. So obviously you don't want to boo too much at home, et cetera. But it was so bad offensively that I think, given what they saw last year, they're like, wait a minute, where is that? And not to say they were expecting Steve Angeli to turn into Kyle McCord right away or anything like that, but just to go from how good it was last year offensively to what we saw for the first 55 minutes of that game yesterday, I think there was a lot of restlessness, upsetness, et cetera. But at the same time, what kind of message are you sending as a fan base when it's game 2 and they're still out there trying to figure it out and fight and whatever? We knew it was a young team and there was going to be growing pains and all that. And you're booing them. I thought those boos came out perhaps a little earlier than I would have liked. But at the end of the day, if you play well, you won't have to worry about it.
How about the offensive line? How concerned are you? It's only 2 games in, but how concerned are you about that unit?
I was more concerned from what I saw on Saturday, I think, than what I was against Tennessee. Because against Tennessee, it felt like they did a pretty good job of opening up some holes for the ground game. I thought Yassine Willis played pretty well in that game, and it seemed like they blocked pretty well for him. And even the sacks that Angeli took, it felt like most of those were communication issues as opposed to just one-on-one getting beat because you're just not as good as the guy across from you. This game, it wasn't so much to me about the quarterback pressure because I think a lot of those situations were Angeli holding on to the ball too long. It was not being able to run the ball against UConn. That was what really, I guess, bothered me or would concern me moving forward. Is the front 7 was supposed to be the weakness of this UConn team. And if you're struggling to run the ball against them, that leads to some question marks about how good of a running team you're going to be moving forward. So I certainly, had my eyebrow raised a little bit from that perspective as far as how they were as a run blocking unit.
After what you saw from Angeli in that game and the offensive line, Mike, do you think it's possible that he's going to get through the season at this point?
I think if he can, there's something about. I heard someone in the stands in the section I was at say he doesn't have that internal clock. He doesn't have that feel for I got to get rid of the ball. The pass rush is coming at me. That sort of intangible feel for guys around you, et cetera. He didn't display that against UConn. That's something that I think he's got to get much better at. Is even if you don't have that third sense of feeling someone near you, and so you just kind of make a play instinctively, there's got to be an internal clock that I've been holding onto the ball too long, I got to do something. Whether it's throw the ball away, scramble forward, throw the ball to a check down, something. And there were too many instances where he didn't do that led to sacks, and the 1 4th down play that led to the fumble that got kicked up near midfield. Those are the things that, I think he's got to improve on. And if he gets better at not holding the ball so long and sort of trusting his eyes, is I think something that's not easy to do as a inexperienced starter. If he can start to get better at those things, then I think he can get through the season.
What are you looking to get out of this Colgate game aside from a comfortable win?
Health, I think, would be important. Get everyone out of there healthy. I know that obviously Devin Grant's been banged up, and a couple other guys. So if he can get out of there healthy, that would be important. But I want to see a clean game offensively and then continue to take strides from a defensive standpoint with tackling and pressuring the quarterback, I thought they showed some things in the second half against UConn, and especially down the stretch of that game in the last half of the fourth quarter in terms of pressuring the quarterback, not allowing him to get comfortable, and then making some plays on the defensive side of the ball. That I want to see that continue for a full game against an inferior opponent. And then offensively, I want to see the ball come out of Angeli's hands quickly, and I want to see them run the ball really well in that game and sort of reestablish themselves as a good running football team.
All right, Mike, good stuff. We'll see you on the TV side of things tonight over at News Channel 9.
Before we let Mike go, Tronic in our chat had a great idea. If you boo and Syracuse goes on to win, you have to run wind sprints. What do you think of that?
I like it.
I'm
good with that.
I do like it. Mike, we'll see you tonight.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.